Penguin Random House Audio presents Calling in the One, revised and expanded, 7 weeks to attract the love of your life. This is the author, Katherine Woodward Thomas. To those of you who've had your heart bruised and dreams crushed more times than you can count, yet who courageously, boldly, steadfastly, and stubbornly continue to believe in love, this book is for you. And to Alexandria and Mark, the sweet fruits of my labor. Preface. My story. Be realistic, plan for a miracle. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. This is what being single was like for me. I am an attractive, charismatic woman, petite with a curvy figure, olive complexion, and unruly dark hair. I love people fervently, and I have a profound need to be deeply connected to them. I loathed being alone in life. Yet by the time I reached my 40th birthday in 1997, I was a true blue card-carrying member of one of the fastest growing groups in America, the Never Marrieds. I had no problem meeting men. As a matter of fact, my favorite advice to my girlfriends was that old saying, men are like buses. If you miss one, another will be along in 10 minutes. In other words, don't spend too much time grieving when they disappoint you. And believe you me, I spoke from experience. When I was 19, I had a boyfriend who, responding to my nurturing and caring nature, told me that it would be a tragedy if I never had children. His words haunted me as the tick, tick, tick years passed. When in my late 30s, having just finished graduate school en route to become a psychotherapist, I sat reading Gail Sheehy's book, New Passages, which at the time had just come out. In it, she devotes a whole section to women who, like me, had postponed childbearing. She quotes a gynecologist as calling this phenomenon a mini-epidemic of deluded, about to be desperately disappointed women in their mid-40s. My heart sank. I knew then that it just wasn't ever going to happen for me, and that I'd just been fooling myself. Remember, this was before the promising option of freezing your eggs, so the stakes felt incredibly high. At least once a week, as though he or she had the right to humiliate me, someone would say, "You've never been married? Why? What's wrong?" For years I told them that it was because I hadn't met the right person. Eventually, though, I began to secretly wonder if it was because I'd never been the right person. I kept trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Here I was, counseling others on how to have great and loving relationships, then coming home to an empty apartment night after night. Why wasn't anyone proposing to me? Why wasn't anyone asking me to be the mother of his children? God, it would have been better if I were at least divorced. Then I could say that someone had wanted me, only it didn't work out. All of our suffering in life is from saying we want one thing and doing another. Debbie Ford. This was my pattern. I went for unavailable men, any type, shape, size, color, professional affiliations, or lack thereof. As long as it was an impossible love, I was in. I was a magnet for married men, engaged men, workaholic men, alcoholic men, commitment-phobic men, and gay men who wanted to explore. And because I worked with ex-cons as an art therapist for several years, I also seemed to possess an unfortunate allure for straight men who were on their way in or out of prison. All of these men found me fascinating and compelling and would go to remarkable lengths to bed me. I'd like to be able to tell you that available men found me uninteresting or unattractive or something, but truthfully, so few available men came into my life that I have no idea how they might have responded to me. Consequently, I was alone quite a bit. Sometimes I'd give in and become entangled in some drama that wasn't ever going to go anywhere, and I'd feel terrible about myself. I'd berate myself for wasting my time on impossible relationships, yet it seemed the only alternative was to be alone. And as I told you before, I loathed being alone. All too often, I found myself getting attached to a man whom I didn't respect, seduced by his desire for me. The occasional man I'd meet whom I did respect and who actually was available seemed to run like water through my fingers. He was always on his way elsewhere. Finally, right around my 41st birthday, I met a gracious and classy man named Daniel. He was a widower whose wife of 20-something years had passed away a few months before we met. He was good-looking, kind, successful, spiritual, fun to be with, and very, very considerate of me. He told me over and over how beautiful and smart he thought I was, and went out of his way to try to please me. I thought I'd gotten it right this time, completely ignoring the signs that I was simply his transitional relationship in the aftermath of a long and happy marriage. Even though I had stopped dating anyone but him, the truth was he had several girlfriends whom he was seeing. I was just waiting for him to come to his senses. Perhaps in my heart of hearts, I didn't believe that I'd ever have what I really wanted, so I just pretended that even though he wasn't committing to me, the crumbs were good enough. After all, it was a huge step up from some of the guys I dated. This included the one who thought being good to me was letting me feed his cats while he was away. Yet when Daniel asked another woman out on New Year's Eve, I finally got the hint. Daniel was the last unavailable man I ever dated. If you want the whole thing, the gods will give it to you, but you must be ready for it. Joseph Campbell. Meeting the one. Now I have to back up about 6 years to 1992. I was dating William, whom I'd met through the personals. That's back when people actually put ads in the newspaper to try to meet someone, pre-online dating. William seemed to be the good guy I thought I was looking for, bright, creative, sweet, law-abiding, and employed. He actually paid for dinner at the nice restaurants he invited me to. I was in heaven. I did not yet know that William was a rageaholic. That part came later. When I was invited by a friend to a gathering sponsored by a local spiritual group, I asked William to come along. Now, William had about as much interest in spiritual matters as I have in the mating patterns of armadillos. However, when a man is trying to get a woman into bed, he racks up a lot of points by going with her to the kinds of events she's interested in, and this fact was not lost on William. We made our way to the address I was given and rang the bell. A man who introduced himself as Mark answered the door. Welcoming and polite, he invited William and me to join the group that had gathered in his living room. Although Mark gave no overt indication of being attracted to me, I've always had a fairly acute radar about these things. I could tell by the way his glance lingered just a moment too long that he was interested. I was flattered and somewhat intrigued. When he called 2 days later, I was not completely surprised. On my first night out with Mark, we attended the backyard wedding of a friend of his. We were so absorbed in our conversation that we barely paid attention to the bride and groom. Afterward, we went dancing. I assured Mark that my relationship with William was not exclusive. I convinced him that it would be perfectly fine for me to date both of them.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?